Statement that's come in from Zelensky, who says that he's invited India for the second Global Peace Summit. In fact, note this comes in the backdrop of that bilateral meet that was held between the two leaders on the sidelines of the UNGA. And with that, Zelensky now saying that he's invited Prime Minister Modi for the second Peace Summit.
To end the war altogether. And I invite all of you, all principled nations, to join us in this process, all who truly respect the UN Charter. We invite China, we invite Brazil, I have already invited India, we are working with African nations, with all of Latin America, Middle East, Central Asia, Europe, the Pacific region, North America, all. All are equally important for peace.
All right, let's go across to a senior executive editor, Abhishek Kapoor, also joining us. Abhishek, both Ukraine and Russia have rather called on India to end this conflict. What role can India play, given that the West has essentially failed in helping in bringing this conflict to an end?
Let's put it this way, Shamiksha, that there is already something in the works. Remember, Prime Minister Narendra Modi happens to be the only leader of that stature who has met both President Zelensky and President Putin, who has visited both Kiev and Moscow, and who knows both the sides. So if you look at the West, the entire leadership is fully backing Ukraine, and they have taken a moral judgment that they have to stand by Zelensky and Kiev and Ukraine and not listen at all to the perspective coming in from the Moscow side. On the other hand, you have China. They are fully backing the Russians. They are not interested in what President Zelensky and Ukraine have to say. India is very novel in its position that we don't want war. The war should stop. And for that, both sides should be listened to. So, for example, when the first peace summit happened in Switzerland, India's position was that you cannot have this kind of peace process unless both sides sit across the table and both sides are participating in it. So while it's good that President Zelensky, who's very upbeat now about India's role after a visit of Prime Minister Modi to Kiev, and then of course just 3 days back he also met Prime Minister again in New York on the sidelines of the UNGA. The fact of the matter is that, in fact, Prime Minister now has met Zelensky more than President Putin, though, of course, he would be meeting President Putin again in the month of November on the sidelines of the BRICS summit, and when Prime Minister travels again to Russia. What is important is this position, that both sides have to be part of a peace process for it to succeed, is something which should be appreciated. So while Zelensky has invited India, and which is good, unless he also agrees that he has to ultimately sit across and negotiate with the other side, it's going to be a non-starter. Having said that, there is already something in the works. There is a lot of back and forth and to and fro diplomacy, back-channel diplomacy, of which India is part of. We know some of it already happening by way of those visible optics. Prime Minister meeting Zelensky both in Kiev and New York, and then of course Prime Minister having met President Putin, and then of course again having had a couple of more phone conversations, follow-up phone conversations between both the sides. I think we have to wait and see how it pans out, but definitely if in near future we see, and possibly it would happen only after US elections, because even the Russians would be sort of calibrating to see who comes to power in Washington, D.C., and what role United States subsequently is going to play in Europe. And if that peace plans really works out on the ground, you would have known by then, definitely, that India had some role in it.
Right, Abhishek, stay with us. In fact, let's once again listen into that statement that came in from the Ukrainian president.
To end the war altogether. And I invite all of you, all principled nations, to join us in this process, all who truly respect the UN Charter. We invite China, we invite Brazil, I have already invited India, we are working with African nations, with all of Latin America, Middle East, Central Asia, Europe, the Pacific region, North America, all. All are equally important for peace.